Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Warships Legends. My name is Spartan Elite 43 and tonight we are back taking our first look at the new Tier 7 US cruiser, the Anchorage. Now, before we get started, let's jump straight into our commander. We're running the Baltimore, Azure Lane Baltimore. We are running Francesco Mimbelli and Nikolai Kuznetsov. We are running Beyond Range, Igniter, Punch Through, Fixated, and Fully Packed as our inspiration and commander skills. If you do not have Azure Lane Baltimore, use Norman Scott. Okay, it's that simple. Or if you've got the Halloween commander, Einstein is another good potential. Anyway, I'm just giving those out there for potential free-to-play players. Okay, let's get into the build. I am running Aiming Systems Mod 1. We're running Propulsion Mod. We're running Concealment System Mod. And we are running the Main Battery Mod 3. Which, of course, we have the Epic Mod so that we can get a little bit faster reload over time. Now, let's look at the loadout. We're running the sonar. You might, as a solo player, it is completely viable to swap the sonar for the catapult fighter just so that you have some spotting in certain situations. Because I'll be honest, as I stated previously, this thing really does require teammates' help when it comes to spotting. It is not a, I'm going to go out here and carry my butt off kind of ship. It just isn't. Okay? Smoke generator, though, you do have 3 smokes with this build, which is nice. They're not the longest smoke screens, but especially useful if you are near another teammate, because there is the opportunity there for using Fully Packed. You get your consumables back faster when you're close to a teammate. So that is a potential. You can actually have your smoke back by the time that your smoke dissipates. So keep that in mind if you're running in a division or if you're running with or close to another ship. You can actually keep your smoke up pretty much all the time. Repair party. Obviously, it's got a decent repair. It's not amazing, and considering the amount of damage you're going to take from anything 16 inches and above, we'll go over that in a moment. But we are running the Epic Battle Booster for a little bit extra range as well. So, and it also reduces the cooldown on your consumables. Obviously, I'm running Italian Unity flag because if you squint just right, it kind of looks like a Spartan. And then we have the Type 9 camo that comes with the ship. Specs, we have 41,800 hit points with 16% torp damage reduction. For main battery, we have 12 203mm Mark 15 guns that reach out to 18.5 kilometers with this build. They reload in 12.4 seconds as a base reload, and they get faster over time. 180-degree turn time is 30.3 seconds due to our final mod that we put on that nerfs our turret traverse. Okay, HE shell damage is 2,800 with a 17% chance to set fires, so pretty solid fire chance there. AP shell maximum damage is 4,968, so a little bit kind of lethargic there. If I remember correctly, Balti has better AP, so if we look at like even Azure Lane Balti, yeah, 5,500, and then regular Balti has 5,724. So a little bit more damage out of the Baltimore, but you still have solid Baltimore or solid 203mm guns. They do considerable damage to anything that goes broadside, especially cruisers. And because you get extra guns, like if a cruiser goes broadside to this thing, you might just straight dev strike it with a single salvo. It is not uncommon. Now we have 533mm quadruple torpedo tubes, one on either side of the ship. You have 87-second reload time on those with a 19,000 maximum damage, which is absurd for 533mm torpedoes. It might be the hardest hitting 533mm torpedoes that we have in the game. I don't know. I don't really pay that much attention, but that seems really high for a 533mm torpedo. Like, that's Japanese torpedo level, and they're like 600 and something. So yeah, that's pretty massive. They reach out to 10.5 kilometers and they do 66 knots. So they're not the slowest torps in the world, and they have a decent range. So I will be honest with you, the worst part about these torps is they have ridiculously bad torp angles. Like, the torp angles are terrible. We'll go over why in a minute. AA defense is solid, but not amazing. 20mm Oerlikon Mark IVs. You get 16 of those, doing 58 damage per second, reaching out to 2 kilometers. You have the 28mm Mark II Mod 2s. You have 16, or I lied, 28, that would be 56. 56 of those, reaching out, or doing 95 damage per second, reaching out to 3.1 kilometers, which is nice because that gives you a little bit more of a buffer than usual. Then you have the 127mm dual-purpose secondaries that you have 4 of, and they do 32 damage per second, reaching out to 5 kilometers. And then you have the 127mm 38 caliber Mark 29 Mod Zeros that you have 4 of, and they do 30 damage per second, reaching out to 5 kilometers. Maneuverability, maximum speed is actually better than most the heavy cruisers for the Americans, so slightly. I say slightly because it's like normally 32 or 33 knots, and this is 34, so it's a little bit faster, but that could just be due to the fact that I have the Epic Battle Booster on, come to think of it. Turning circle for a cruiser, not particularly amazing. Rudder shift is definitely not great. It's in battleship-esque territory. Not quite as bad as battleships, but in the neighborhood. So you may want to maybe spec into a little bit of rudder shift for this thing. Concealment. Detectability by sea, 11 kilometers, so not particularly amazing. Detectability by air, 6.9 kilometers. Guaranteed detectability is always 2, and the detectability while firing in smoke is 6.5 kilometers. Statistics, we'll go over it. I have a 38% win rate in this ship because I have played 13 battles and I've only won 5 of them. Sometimes you just don't get the teams you need, and that also kind of points to the fact that this ship really doesn't carry very well. You need teammates to support it. Am I saying it's a bad ship? Absolutely not. If you're in a division, the ship is a fucking amazing ship, and I apologize for my language. It's a great ship for a division. It's a great ship if you know that you're going to get some support. If you don't get support in the ship, you're not going to have a good time. It's not a bad ship, but it's not an amazing ship either. I know I've caught a lot of flack for this, because I say that it's just kind of a run-of-the-mill ship. I would rather be in a Balti or a Wichita or, you know, pretty much any other heavy cruiser for the Americans, just due to the fact that there's more utility there than this thing offers. It gives you a lot more, plus the agility is nice, plus I would rather be in a Balti or Wichita over this any day of the week, and it ain't even close. It's not even close. It's not that it's a bad ship, but those ships are so much better than this. Average results per battle speak for themselves as well. Average damage, 81,000, so not terrible. It's not that I'm having bad games in the ship, but I just can't seem to clutch out those games that you could normally sway just due to the fact that this ship requires so much help from its team. You need spotting. You need to be able to utilize those smokes and put yourself in good positions. But again, a lot of people give me flack for, well, you're just not a cruiser player, Spartan. You don't know how to use a lot island covers and bullshit. All right, again, apologize for my language, but I get a little bit touchy on this because I play every freaking thing, and I play a lot of cruisers, and I know how to use island cover. But you can't utilize island cover without support from a team. You can't utilize your smoke screen without support from your team. Now, you could potentially drop the sonar for the plane and potentially spot for yourself that way. That might be something that I try in the future to see if it helps raise my stats up a little bit. But I'm telling you, as a solo player, unless you get support from your team, you're not necessarily going to have a lot of fun in the ship. XP-wise, 1,550 base XP, solid XP. Potential damage, you can see 831,000. High for a cruiser, but not up there as high as, say, my Wichita or my Balti, just due to the fact that they get spotted because they don't have smoke, right? Makes sense. Armor, though, it's got the same sort of armor that you'd expect from a Balti or Wichita. It's got a 27mm bow. Okay, so anything 15 inches and lower does not overmatch, which is huge. It's got 27mm upper side plating as well. Now, I will say that this is not angled armor, so anything, if you do over-angle, anything pretty much may not need to overmatch, but it'll probably penetrate anything sort of a battleship quality. All right. So, other than that, there's one other big problem with this ship, and that is its citadel. It's got a raised citadel. This is something that you don't see on the Baltimore or the Wichita, right? Baltimore is like right at the waterline, and the Wichita is below the waterline. This thing has an above the waterline citadel. Now, as you may have saw, it does have a little, actually I lied, it has an exposed citadel. It's not belt armor. So, as you can see, that is an exposed citadel. So, again, not an ideal scenario, right? And with as flat as this armor is, it's not angled at all. It's completely straight up and down, right? So if you over-angle, anything battleship caliber is going to go through the 27mm upper side plating and whatnot and citadel you, or straight through that belt and citadel you if you're over-angled. So keep that in mind. Now the other thing, obviously, is the same thing that the Balti and the Wichita have. They have that extended citadel. Well, I think the Wichita doesn't have that, but the Baltimore definitely does. And Baltimore can be overmatched through the bow as well by 16-inch guns and above, and citadel through the bow. That is something that you will see later on as well, as we get into the battle and I show you guys what's going on. But just little things like that to keep in mind. All right, so you have a very big exposed citadel that if you over-angle even slightly, you will absolutely pay for. All right. Superior AP damage, that's a lie. It doesn't have above average AP shell damage at all. It's worse than both the Wichita both of the Baltimores. So I wouldn't say, maybe it's better than the average cruiser at tier 7, question mark. But it is definitely not above average AP shell damage in my opinion. Doesn't seem like it. Seems like average. Sticky shot though, reduced ricochet chances, so it's got that nice little improved penetration angles that we love out of the Baltimore. I don't think it quite has Baltimore AP though. I think it has some opportunities where it seems like it does, as we discussed in the previous version, but overall it's not a particularly amazing AP. Anchorage, a heavy cruiser design created under Project CAB. So cruiser, what would the B? I forget. I'm trying to think of what the B stands for in the designation. Anyway, the ship outmatched the Baltimore class ships in terms of her size and power. She's bigger. She's got more guns. She does have torpedoes. So she might outmatch a Baltimore in that sense, but a Baltimore would run rampant over this thing in the game. And she also carried torpedo armament. Year of design, 1940. Never built to my knowledge. Anyway, so let's talk about the torpedoes. Torpedoes are center of the ship, and they are a protected torpedo launcher. This is both a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because it allows the torps to not necessarily be taken out if people are shooting the center of the ship. Bad thing is it's also center of the ship, and it's on the side, so there's a good chance somebody's going to hit that and knock it out, especially if it's an HE salvo coming from a high caliber ship. You're probably going to lose these torpedo tubes. Keep that in mind. They are not particularly strong. Okay. That being said, because they are protected in the hull torpedo tube like this, they also have terrible torp launch angles. They don't have a very good angle over the front. They don't have a very good angle over the rear. You end up over-angling to try to get these torpedoes off. So, highly recommend you use these sparingly. Okay? Only from when you're safe. Okay? Don't put yourself out there to try to torp somebody, because you will regret it. Remember, exposed citadel. Don't try to open up the angle just to torp somebody when you could get absolutely dev struck. All right, overall though, I don't hate the ship. I think it's a decent ship overall. And again, if you're in a division, I think it'll be fantastic. It's got great AP, great HE. It's got torps, decent range torps, decent speed torps. It just, I think, struggles for solo players unless you get those teams that actually do their jobs, which, let's be honest, that's pretty rare these days. So let me know what you guys think, and with that being said, let's get to the gameplay. Alrighty, so we're going to be on Crash Zone, and we're going to be in one of the... It's not the ideal scenario, and you'll see why in a moment, but this game had the potential to be a pretty epic game from our part, just due to the fact that people just played into our hand, right? So we're going to spawn on the Charlie Cap, and we're going to get to utilize our smokes. We're going to have spotting because we have a carrier. We have 2 battleships on our side. So we're going to have opportunities to do a lot of potential damage here. And then you'll see why it doesn't end up being as great a game as it ended up should have been. And we'll go over that in the thing. Now, what I will say is a lot of people came in, bought this thing as soon as it came out in the campaign. That's fine. But they all pointed to my like Meet the video, my original Meet the video, and said, "Oh, Spartan, you were wrong about such and such. You were wrong about this." And it's like, look, there's a couple of things that we got to remember. First of all, this ship was buffed before it was released. So I used the testing version, the rental version, and it got a buff from the time that I used it to the time you guys got to use it, right? Secondly, everybody has different play styles, right? There's no right or wrong way to play a ship. I mean, there's definitely a wrong way to play a ship, let's be honest. But if you go back to that video, I definitely didn't use the ship wrong, okay? I did what I had to do to give my team the best chance to win. And I'm going to do that again here. Now, this ship does not like being the center of attention. It just doesn't. That's why it's got smokes, right? That exposed citadel will bite you in the butt every single time. Now, here we have a Palmer inside our firing distance. Not only is he inside our firing distance, but he's actually closing, which means he is the perfect target. And looky what we have here. We have a battleship that decided to go forward and then immediately turn out, and now he's right in our way, ramming into us. So we reverse, get out of his way, trying to stay as far away from each other as possible. I don't want to screw my battleships over, but, you know, sometimes things happen. So we let him out, and we continue our assault on the Palmer. If you're in the Palmer's shoes here, once you find yourself being fired upon by 3 ships and you're just charging forward, you should probably rethink your strategy. Because this is not going to go in your favor. I don't care how good you are. I don't care what ship you're in. If you're being targeted in the open water by multiple ships, you're probably not long for this world. But you can see the HE is absolutely devastating for this thing, as you'd expect. 203mm HE. I believe it has the same normal, what is it, 1/6 pin? So, somebody do math. Quick, Spartan, do math. I'll do math real quick on my phone because, you know, math. Alright, so we take 203 divided by 6. It gives you 33.8 penetration, right? 33.8 millimeters of penetration. Not all ships have the 6th pin for HE. Germans, I think, get 1/5 pin on some of their stuff, and then the British, I think they have quarter pin. I could be wrong. Maybe it's quarter pin on some of the Germans as well, like mines. But either way, when you're pinning over 32 millimeters of armor, we know that a lot of the battleships and cruisers and stuff at higher tiers has 32 mils. So HE literally will pin everywhere that there's 32 millimeters of armor. So that's why you see not only just outright fires and stuff like that, but damage from 203s, right? Now here we got a good salvo of AP. You got to see what it can do on a broadside of a battleship. Got a good salvo into him. Palmer's about to go down. So we take a shot at our ARP Musashi out here, and we manage to do significant amounts of damage, showing that improved penetration angles that we talked about. Do not sleep on the AP of this ship. If you get an opportunity to use it, especially on broadsides, highly recommend you take it. Now here, perfect example of us being able to utilize our smoke screen again. Because our teammates are close to us, we had fully packed, we were able to use our smoke screen immediately after the other one disappeared. You'll see in a moment, when everybody gets away from us, that's no longer going to be the case. Okay? So, we get a fire early on the Musashi. He is obviously going to end up getting rid of that fire. We get another shot out at him, and then we got the Rochester over here, who's getting ready to go broadside. Unfortunately, I have HE loaded, so we're going to take the shot with HE, which is fine, and then we immediately switch to AP, expecting this guy to potentially stay broadside for a little bit, but he actually does the right thing. He turns away. Georgia reaches out, touches him, and he gets very lucky to not just be outright removed. Remember, there's an Izumo behind me as well. So we have Izumo and Georgia on this side of the map. Now, I'm not going to lie. Our destroyer is countering their destroyer right now, which is huge. Our Georgia is actually going to help take a shot at that destroyer as well to help get rid of him. As you can see, the Fletcher versus Northern Dragon. Fletcher should murder Northern Dragon every single day of the week. Like, it shouldn't even be a question. As long as you don't eat torpedoes from them, like, you should murder a Northern Dragon with a Fletcher. But kudos to the Georgia for taking a shot to try to help out the destroyer. The carrier also there to try to help with the destroyer. So huge shout out to both the carrier player and the Georgia. What can be described next, or the thing that happens next, is only what we consider heartbreaking for me. Because, like, I had the perfect setup, right? Like, we know the guy was on damage cooldown. I was hoping that we'd get a chance to shoot at him. But, unfortunately, Musashi doesn't get spotted until he gets broadside on to the Georgia. Comes around the corner, slaps the Georgia, but broadside to Musashi, Yama, whatever, you're dead. Like, you don't get to pass go. You don't get to collect $200, right? I don't know how many times I have to say this. If you're in a ship with a Yamato hull and you think that you come around the corner broadside, I don't care what is near you, you're going to get citadeled into oblivion. It can be a cruiser. Cruisers will citadel the crap out of a Musashi or a Yama or an Izumo or an Iwami. Okay? The Yamato hull is very vulnerable to citadels. So stop over-angling. For the love of God. The Yamato hull is actually very well armored. It's just that everybody and their freaking sister likes to go full broadside and say, please, send me home. I don't want to be here anymore. Problem is, Sunshine, we ain't sending you home. We're sending you to the bottom. Then again, I guess it's historically accurate. Ish. Lord, it was sunk by planes. I know. Relax. Anyway, so unfortunately, that was a lot of damage that we were going to be able to potentially farm there, and it got removed from us real quick. What can you do? So now we're kind of stuck having to counter-rotate. I could have went forward into the Charlie Cap and captured that base, but then the game would have ended even sooner. I was hoping to get across the map to a point where I could potentially target the battleship or the cruisers and get into a little bit more damage, right? That was our goal. The enemy has done nothing in this lobby. That's the problem. Like, this is the biggest issue for me in this cruiser is I can't seem to get a game where I get to just utilize the ship for what it's for. Like, I always end up in a game where either my team completely collapses and I'm stuck trying to defend an entire flank by myself in a ship that literally just gets sneezed on and dies, or I end up in a game where I start to do well and the team just steamrolls the other team and we win, or we win on points or whatever. And that was exactly what this game ended up trying to turn into. Fortunately for me, our team kept feeding each other, like feeding their ships to the enemy for whatever reason. I don't know why. They just did. So it's going to allow us to get in and do a little bit more to affect this match. Again, winning harder is one of those things that I just don't understand why people do it. Like, it's one thing to, like, engage other ships. It's another thing to engage other ships in a manner that's almost certain to get you killed. Right? Like, look at the positioning of our Kansas right now. Full broadside to the enemy Georgia. I think it's a Georgia. Pretty sure it's a Georgia. Our other battleships are about to pull out broadside in front of them as well. So both of these battleships completely broadside to the only battleship that's left. They're shooting their guns at the carrier, which is fine, I guess. If you're going to shoot something, might as well take down the little scumbag that's sitting at the back of the map. But meanwhile, they're not just being farmed by the battleship and the carrier. They're also being farmed by the freaking cruisers. So, again, you question why. What was the point of them coming out? And I get it. You want to do some damage. You want to get some good things. And Musashi, to his credit, does manage to kill the Lexington. Kansas goes down. End of him. Again, broadside on, begging for it. I don't understand it. It's a thing. Musashi got caught by the Georgia, lost a good chunk of his health before he gets turned in. And now he's going to get farmed by the cruisers. It's one of those things. And the carrier's coming in for one more shot since the New Jersey comes around. He's bow in, and I'm not gonna lie, this one caught me off guard. That Musashi reached right through his bow and punched him for like 20-30k. Like, just neutered that New Jersey through the bow. Of course, unfortunately for the Musashi, that was the last thing he will get to do. As we get to target the New Jersey here a couple more times before he goes dark, we're hopeful that we get the fire. We don't have anybody in position to actually spot the battleship. The destroyer has decided for one reason or another that out of everything that exists on the map, he needs to go after the two cruisers. You can see, I'm trying. Like, I'm like, why? There are 2 DPM cruisers out there. Rochester and a mines. Why on earth are you trying to go after those guys? I don't understand it. But you can see, I am keeping my guns pointed towards the direction of the Georgia because I was anticipating the Georgia coming straight over and being a problem for me. I didn't want to open fire on the mines. They did finish off the Rochester, fortunately, between the carrier and the 2 battleships. But the mines, still a problem, right? So I do have 1 more smoke left, and I was hoping to use it to help counter the Georgia, but we have a broadside look at the mines. Might as well smoke up and prepare to engage. Now, right as we take this shot, I don't know if the mines is actually paying attention here, but he does turn in and slow down, which keeps me from yeeting him into oblivion with the first shot. He dodges the torpedoes pretty well from the destroyer, starts to go forward, and again, we have a beautiful look at his broadside, and he turns in and angles against me, but we get a couple of shots into a superstructure, no big deal. He starts to turn out, and this is GG. Like, you're not going to give up this much angle to any American cruiser and get away with it. And so we yeet him into oblivion, as we should. Now here, I know that the Georgia overmatches me, right? We already talked about this. We know we have a 27mm bow. Anything 16 inches and above overmatches us. Georgia has 18-inch guns. Here, I drop some preemptive torps into the cap, knowing that the enemy Georgia is coming in. And I get a little bit too cocky. And by cocky, I mean I felt like my battleships weren't going to spot anything, so it was best for me to actually try. And of course, as soon as I committed to going forward, New Jersey gets spotted, and I'm like, okay, well, in this case, I might as well try to get over here, and I could utilize this island. I get that. I could definitely shoot over this island and not get spotted. That would have been the smart play, but watch this AP into the superstructure, right? Bonk. 5 full pins and an overpin into the superstructure. That's what we're talking about with this AP. Now, I know full well that this New Jersey is fully capable of yeeting me into oblivion. So I am trying to angle a little bit without going straight bow in. And this man just yeets all of my health with 1 salvo. He lands 5 out of 6 shells on target to yeet me into oblivion. Fortunately, between my fires and the carrier and my battleships, we managed to take out all the health of the Georgia and finish him off. Finishing with, I believe, my best game in this thing so far, which is 120, I guess it's 125. I think my best was 126, but 2,500 base. We did what we had to do. Could have been a much better game if the Musashi had lived a little longer. We'd have been able to farm some more damage off of him. Probably ended up with 150, 160, somewhere in that neighborhood. But you can't be choosers. Sometimes you just got to show the ship for what it is. And again, I don't hate the ship. I think it's a fine ship. But I would rather be in a Georgia, or not a Georgia. I'd rather be in a Wichita or a Baltimore or a Cleveland over this thing. So let me know what you guys think. I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys actually think about it. And if you like what I'm doing, punch the like button, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, I will see you in the next video.